So Jake, my man, how's things?
Fantastic. Simon, how are you?
I'm really, really good, mate. I have to say, I'm really excited to have you on the show. I really think the topics what we're going to go into today are they're not really spoke about. So I'm really glad that we've got you on the show where we can delve into some content I feel doesn't really get the light that it should.
Yeah, fantastic. There are a lot of topics there that don't typically get talking about because they kind of veer away from conventional wisdom. So it's good.
Well, look, because we've got you on and because it's a hot topic, I want to just jump in from the word go. Like, we can just skim into this topic and we can skim straight back out. But given the nature of
Gotcha.
what you do, is this coronavirus thing a hype? What needs to happen with it? What's going on? Give us a professional view.
Um, well, my professional view is that it's absolutely all hype and just such a storm in a teacup. But the thing is, the best advice that I can give people on that, without going into heaps of detail on what specifically causes it and the biological emotional conflicts that have caused those symptoms which have been labeled coronavirus, one of the biggest things is just not to buy into all the fear. It's not to freak yourself out, because the funny thing is, the more that you do that, the more likely you are to actually experience symptoms. The more you can stay out of all that nonsense, the better your life's going to be for so many reasons.
Top man, I had to throw that one in from the word go because it's just getting crazy now on social media and the amount of conversations I'm having around it. But dude, I
Yeah.
appreciate that. So Jake, look, my man, I think with anything in these sorts of industries, there's always really an interesting story behind the person and why they do what they do. Now, before we get into any of today's topics and content, which I've got here, I'd love to know more about you. So what's
Sure.
the story of Jake? Like, what got you into this line of work? What's made you go down the route that you've gone into? Because it's so specialized and unique. I love it.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And it has been a massive journey, actually. And it's only been in like, I've been sort of, like, I'll backtrack a little bit, but I've been sort of sitting on this work for probably the last 6 years, too scared to actually do anything with it because it's so against conventional wisdom. So I knew that by putting myself out there, I would cop a lot of flack and cop a lot of, um, I guess just it wouldn't get a lot of support from a lot of people, and that was the thing that held me back for so long. But I guess the time's come when I've actually realised that no, people need to hear this work because it's truth and it helps so many people. But yeah, to get to where I am now of practicing this work and speaking about it. Initially, I was a chiropractor. I still am, I guess. I like as a kid, I broke my back playing football, AFL in Australia, for those who know it. And basically, I was always wanted to be a surgeon, and I went and did a placement with like in surgery, watching surgeries and stuff like that. And I just remember the surgeon saying about whatever you do, don't do this. The only thing that's good for is a divorce. You don't have time for anything. What do you like to do on the weekends, Jake? And I'm like, I love surfing and footy and keeping active. And they're like, well, forget about all of that.
The immediate career inspiration has just been shot and punched out the water.
Which I'm so damn grateful for, because if I had have gone down that route, I would have definitely not be where I am today. So anyway, that inspired me to become a chiropractor. A chiropractor helped me through a few injuries, and then I went to uni and studied that, and I guess sort of became a little bit disheartened with the uni degree. I'm not sure. I just started to feel that with the thing, and then I started my own practice from scratch and got that cranking. But the thing was, I just realised that so many people's pain and illness wasn't necessarily physical. Sure, I helped a lot of people with my chiropractic work, and chiropractic's fantastic, but I just realised that there was a deeper underlying cause, and it's kind of funny. The universe kind of found it for me. I tore my groin doing CrossFit, and it didn't heal for like 6 months. And I was presenting at a workshop, and there was another guy from Canada presenting about this thing called Germany medicine and about how emotions can cause disease. Anyway, I asked this guy at the end of the talk, I was like, so do you reckon there's like emotional links with my groin injury that I've got right now? Because it just won't heal. And he goes, absolutely. And so in a 3-minute conversation or probably a 5-minute conversation, I went from like 7 out of 10 pain in my groin to like a 1 or a 2, and I was back training in a week after talking
Oh,
about some specific things. And like that moment, that shift was like one of the defining moments in my life. It was like, okay, I need to start doing this work and following this path.
Jake, this is awesome. I'd love to know because, like, my background when I first started out, I think it was 14 years ago. I was in the fitness world doing nutrition and all that sort of stuff, and like actually coaching people. And one of the biggest things that I found is like it's all well and true giving people the nutrition. You're looking at the things such as like the inflammation, X, Y, Z. But the biggest thing that I found and what really led me away from it was I never really found that was the issue. Or I found certain people with certain issues always had like a same emotional catch, so to speak.
Right.
But I'd love to know further from your aspect and kind of like this line of work is more to the point, if people are in some form of physical pain or something's not correct, like where would they start? Like what would be the first things to kind of look at? Is there certain questions to ask?
Yeah, that is a good question in itself. And you're definitely right. There's like based on a lot of it stems from childhood stuff. It's like if you've been through X kind of trauma, it kind of shapes the way that you view the world, and it makes you prone to experience and perceiving situations in a certain light. And what we know from epigenetics and what we know from the work of some of those guys like Bruce Lipton, he's fantastic. What we know is that the changes at the cellular level actually stem from our perception of the environment. So everything that we experience on a physical level is in some way due to a change in the environment or how we perceive our environment. So acknowledging that is probably the first step, and understanding that, hey, maybe I've got some gut health issues. Maybe it's not because I eat too much gluten. Maybe it's because there's something deeper going on. And actually being open, firstly, to being open to actually think about that in a different light is the first step.
Yeah. I was like with this sort of stuff, once people are kind of aware of that and they kind of know the next steps, what would be like the next steps? I'm really intrigued. The reason being is because I went through a bit of a period where I knew I needed to get out of something that I was doing, and I didn't do it for 2 years, and it created so much underlying stress and all this sort of stuff. And actually what happened was I got given a test. So a laboratory reached out to us on social media. They were like, look, we're going to give you a stress panel, a gut panel, hormone profile. And I thought, look, I'm not actually that bad on the exterior level. However, when the results came back from the lab, it was a complete different story. And it was a bit of a wake-up call with regards to my health. And actually listening to this comment, like what you're saying and just what you've just said there, there's just such a big realization in, yes, environment, stress, and how it affects things. But more to the point, kind of like the actual, if I'm really honest, the emotional state I was in at that given point of time when I was showing up to have the most health issues, which were rippling out all over the show. This is where I'm starting to connect the dots with my own thing.
Cool.
And I think you're really right in what you're saying. But with this, because I'm just trying to link it back into my own path with this, when you've kind of found out that, there is some maybe emotional underlying issues in there, what would be the next like port of call? I can imagine this is going to be a different story or a different. Where would you go?
Absolutely.
Where would you go next?
Well, so here's the thing, right? So the work of Germany medicine, it's kind of like a roadmap. So GNM or Germany medicine is what I've been studying for the last 6 years, and essentially, it's based on the fact that all diseases, bar a few things like poisonings, physical trauma, parasites, a few other bits and pieces, stem from an unexpected biological conflict. So something that happens to us at the emotional level that catches us off guard. And what happens is the body will actually create physical adaptations to help you cope with that stressful situation. And those physical adaptations are often labeled disease or sickness or whatever.
Yeah.
So how we work is it's actually backwards. The symptoms that you get give me or another GNM practitioner a really clear understanding of what was going on in your emotional state. And so essentially by using your symptoms, you work backwards. Because the thing is, it's like, hey, stress and emotions cause disease and illness and stuff like that. That's all well and good. And often it leaves people kind of just trying to heal and fix everything in their life. Is it my relationship with my dad? Maybe it was something that happened when I was a kid. Maybe it was this thing that happened. And it's like people get so lost doing that. But the thing is, it's about understanding what symptom you have, and then understanding the precise biological conflict or emotional conflict that causes that, and then working on that. So there's very particular things that cause various illnesses.
I'd love to.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Is there certain correlations? So, for example, are you starting to see things where if this is kind of like the emotional state of the person, then this tends to lead to this health issue, so to speak?
100%. Yeah.
What's an example of that? Is there any that you can kind of speak around?
There's heaps. So this is, and by the way, this isn't some woo-woo stuff. It's not just like Louise Hay's work. She's done something kind of similar to this, but it's just broad, and I don't mean to downplay it or anything, but it's very broad and not very specific, right? Whereas this work, it's based on thousands of case studies and brain scans of people. And so, like, a specific example of that, like one of the areas that I work in heavily is pain. So specific pains are caused by what we call self-devaluation conflicts. So a self-devaluation conflict is where essentially you blame yourself, you feel not good enough, you beat yourself up to a large extent, and based on how you've interpreted some kind of situation will determine where it shows up in your body.
Interesting. I'm going to put myself on the chopping block here.
Go for it.
I've been suffering. So I was a gymnast for a lot of years, 15, 16 years, got to a really high level. And ever since I came away from it, I've always had a recurring shoulder issue. And it's always showed as like inflammation and things along the lines of that. Now, through periods with stress or pressure, it's one of the things where I've always noticed and I've come to a correlation that it's always getting worse and worse.
Gotcha.
So obviously with pain, like if we were just to use me as an example and things along the lines of that, where would someone like myself start? Like I'm now aware that this is an issue. It's been something that I've been carrying now for 14 years, 15, 16 years. Mm-hmm. What do I do next? Because I've tried everything. Like quite literally, I've tried everything. Still there.
And you know what? That is probably the most common thing that I hear when I start working with people. It's like, Jake, I've literally done 1,000 other things and nothing seems to work. So what you need to look at is, and we could even work through it right now if you wanted to.
Look, if it's something that can help people on this show, I think I'm more than happy to hang myself out there and see what comes back. So,
okay, cool. Well, because the thing is, like, if we're able to identify what conflict started this, you should actually notice an immediate reduction in your pain.
Yep.
So, is there anything that you can do with your shoulder, like just sitting there now, whereby you can sort of like lift it over your head and you might feel it pinch or twinge or anything like that?
Exactly that. Literally, as soon as I lift up. And I think that's what's caused me to end up damaging the ribs as well.
Okay, and where do you feel it, Simon?
Straight onto the humeral head, like immediately there, and then it kind of goes up into the trap and then into the neck.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so if you did that,
yep.
If you could just calibrate that in terms of like a pain or a discomfort out of 10, where would it be?
So it's like a low humming pain, if that makes sense. So it's between a 4. It's always there though. It's not like a case where it's it's like just constantly there.
Yeah. So about a 4, right?
Yeah, about a 4.
Yeah. So what typically happens, right, is these biological conflicts actually help us. So they're helping us to get stronger. So think of exercise, right? If you did 1,000 bicep curls, one after another, what would happen while you're doing that?
Which I have done in the past.
I can tell you got some pretty solid guns there, mate. So if you did 1,000 bicep curls, what would happen to the muscle fibers in that process of you doing the exercise?
Well, it's shorten and tighten.
Yeah. What else?
Yep. A tear.
Yeah,
exactly. Break down, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So you'll get like micro tears in the muscle. Now, when you're actually doing the exercise and you've got adrenaline pumping through your body, do you feel pain, or do you feel the pain a few days later once the exercise has stopped?
You feel nothing until like 24 hours after, and then it's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I've been hit by a bus.
So I'm going to give you a whole new perception on pain right in this one sentence. So what is your body doing 2 days after or 24 hours after you've done those bicep curls? What is your body doing to those torn bicep fibers?
Recovering, repairing, rejuvenating.
Correct.
Yeah.
Exactly. So pain is actually a sign that your body's healing.
Oh,
It's actually a sign that your body's getting stronger. So if people think of exercise, it's like it makes perfect sense. It's like they do 1,000 bicep curls, and 2 days later their arms are so sore they can't move. They don't think, oh my God, what's wrong with me? They go, hey, I'm getting stronger. And that's actually the case. So physical pain is when you go through an emotional stress, it causes the muscle fibers to physically break down, right? And then when that stress goes away is typically when the pain starts, much like exercise. But the thing is, when something's gone on for 14 years, it's what we call a hanging healing. You're kind of halfway healing, and then, but the thing is, when you go through something stressful, your subconscious mind will take a snapshot of everything you hear, see, smell, taste, touch, and feel and sense. And so anytime you encounter one of those, what we call triggers, your body will return into the stress phase, and then you'll cycle through this thing of like stress and healing, and your body actually never fully recovers. So in order to get through that, like something that's been going on for 14 years, you need to identify what the unexpected conflict was so that you can learn to become aware. Because the thing is, I love that saying by Carl Jung. It's like, until you make the unconscious conscious, it'll direct your life, and you'll call it fate. So it's,
I love that.
Once you make something unconscious conscious, well, then all of a sudden things start to fall away, and your body can actually finish the healing process. Because right now, your shoulder's stuck in a healing process. It's like you've done 1,000 bicep curls, and then 24 hours you're like, afterwards the muscle's repairing and it's sore. But then you pick that dumbbell back up and you keep stressing the muscle. So once you stop stressing it, the body can actually finish healing.
Over the past, say, like 2-3 years, since I've really kind of like looked at this stuff, I've become absolutely fascinated by it, which has kind of led to going on these activations, trips, travels, living with people,
Perfect.
XYZ, that really focus in on the healing work, kind of like the personal performance work. And the things that I've found is like when I've really been submerged in it, the actual shoulder's freed and it's freed itself up. However, when things have kind of returned back, it's then started to come back too. So what's immediately going to my head now is I'm trying to like timeline back. Like, how would you now, because the immediate question I've got for you now is like, how on earth do I find, like, I can't even picture the first time that happened because it was so long ago. And immediately now, I've got there's so many people who I know that are similar to me with ankle issues, even health issues, where there's no real diagnosis or something like that. Like, for this person, if it's something that's been going on for so long and there's no immediate impact work or anything like that, where would you then look to work back towards? Where would you then kind of focus your attention? Where would you look to observe at, so where you could then start to do the internal work to heal it? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm actually in the process of creating a program exactly for that. But
perfect.
For all intents and purposes for the podcast, what I can probably do is just show you, and then it'll answer all those questions for you.
Incredible.
So would you be willing to answer a couple questions?
I'm a complete open book.
Perfect.
I think
awesome.
if I can use myself and put myself out on the block, I think it'll help other people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's the best way to go with it.
So the way that you heal like niggly old injuries and things like that is to find the actual thing that the actual stressful event that started this whole. But the thing is, it's like, well, how the hell do you find that stressful event? Like, we're human, right? We go through so much shit in our day-to-day lives. We have so many different experiences and issues. But the thing is, this work, Germany medicine, it actually is the roadmap. So based on where the pain shows up, it's like when a client comes to me, I know exactly what kind of questions to ask. I know exactly where to go and exactly when to start looking at those questions. So let's do that now with you. I just need to do one quick test. Can you just clap your hands for me as if you're at a concert? I just need to see. Okay, so cool. So what I noticed there, and for those listeners who can't quite see this, is your right hand kind of sits more comfortably on top. Is that correct?
Yeah, always.
When you clap?
My hand goes over the top.
Okay. Do the other way. Do the
It's a
left hand
solid
on
Tony
top.
Robbins clap.
It is. If you do the left hand on top, how does that feel?
It feels awkward because I've never ever done that in my life. So yeah, it's weird.
Cool. So that's a test that we used to do. So this is now going to start to show you how pain patterns show up in your body and skin issues and other things. But for this, we'll talk about pain patterns. So neurologically and biologically, based on that clapping test, you're right-handed. Now, this can differ if you throw a ball or ride. It doesn't really matter what you use. Neurologically, biologically, you're right-handed. So if we were to split you down the middle right now, Simon, everything on the left-hand side of your body would, if there's a pain or something there, it would relate to mother or child. So essentially a nurturing relationship. So like it doesn't need to be literal. It could be like, for me, if I ever have pain show up on my left side of my body, it's to do with like my business is a baby, for example. It can be figurative, or a pet might be a baby, or a grandmother might be a mother, right?
So this is the left-hand side.
This is the left-hand side. So
Yep.
the opposite side to where you're experiencing your shoulder discomfort.
Yep.
So the right-hand side is pretty much anyone else. So it's called the partner side. So partner, most people immediately go to like romantic relationships. Yes, that is part of it. Your father's a partner. If you've got siblings, they're a partner. Colleagues, friends, they're all partner as well. Okay. So, so interesting. Yes. This is typical. This is what happens is when you start asking the right questions for people, or when people start to learn to ask the right questions for themselves, they'll literally pull out the thing that caused the pain. Now, I can see you having ahas, but I'm just going to stop you, right? So the shoulders are to do with what's called a self-devaluation in regards to a relationship. So feeling like you let someone down, or feeling like you lost a bit of self-respect.
No.
In terms of a relationship. So for you, this pain started, 14 years ago, you said?
14 years ago, it was there. However, 6-7 years ago, it became a real noticeable issue where it was there all the time, not just if I'd overtrained. It was a continuous pain. Literally, in an interview show we've just sent live, we're on about fears. And one of the biggest things was like, I genuinely don't care about dying. I don't have an issue with that. But I am scared shitless of letting people down, were the exact words I used on the previous show. Because, and this is where it's just amazing with what you've just said, was 6-7 years ago, there was a real big period of stress. There was kind of like a penthouse to basement moment. A lot of things fell to the floor for me, which weren't controllable, but it kind of acted as that. And everything you've just said then just pretty much lined up to that, which was when it got to its worst. And with you saying letting people down as well, that's like, that was the biggest thing behind it.
So here's the thing, it's right. When you understand the roadmap of your body, you can find those moments. Like that's been sitting in your subconscious mind for years, but you not necessarily haven't like linked it, right? So I'll ask you some more specific questions. During that time, where did you, like, who in particular did you feel like you let down?
It would be an ex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot, and that kind of rippled its way further out as well. And more to the point, myself, my family, and friendship circles, things along
and
that.
I'm assuming, Simon, there was some kind of moment, some kind of unexpected event where that kind of all transpired, like something that kind of maybe caught you off guard, or just something that was sort of a disappointment, or you didn't see kind of playing out.
Yeah, so to speak, it all happened very quick, but not just in one given area either.
Gotcha.
For me, the carpet kind of got pulled in about 4 or 5 areas of life within the space of a month, not just one.
Okay, so we don't need to really go into too much detail because I can see like your face has started to flush, like you've got some nice blood flow. You might notice that on back on the recording, but now just test your shoulder again and see if you notice any change.
Oh shit! Yeah.
What do you notice?
There's no pinch at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's that out of 10? Like no pinch being
3, 2. There's no pinch. It usually pinches there and up. I can usually pinch, but there's actually nothing. I think as well, if the thing that I'm seeing as well on the video feedback,
you've actually got better mobility.
Yeah, my neck's not bending into it. That's insane.
Yeah. And the fact that it went into the side of your neck as well, that correlates with a different biological conflict as well. So that part of your neck relates to what's called a moral ethical conflict. So moral ethical meaning like, and it's like I kind of messed up. It's my fault, or like, why do I deserve this? It's like, it's an injustice. This isn't fair. This is really unfair is probably one of the most common words that I hear. So what was that? Was there something that was really unfair about that situation as well?
At the same given time, not in the relationship area, but more on in the business front. There was a lot of like, I'm more than happy to speak about it. I'm a very open book, but there's a relationship fall down, business betrayals, business collapse. There was best friend decided enough was enough on Earth. So within the space of a month, There was all of these things that kind of just compounded. Yeah. And the thing there, I think that aspect of what we're speaking about there was emergence between the relationship aspect and the business thing. Because I can remember that was the point where I was like, why am I playing victim to this? Because that for me was the biggest. This whole thing was a very big turning point in my life. And like 6 years, I was like, no, I've got to go and work on myself. I'm stepping back. Something has to change. And that was that. Like, I was blaming everything. I was externalizing everything. And yeah, that's, again, at the same period of time, that's when the neck started to become an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And just test that again.
Mate, it's absolutely insane. Like, just honestly, my mind's blown.
You might even notice a further change.
Yep. And this is literally just through speaking, correct?
Yeah, so my work is it's basic.
So what's the sorry, my head's absolutely, I'm like, wow, this is incredible. But what's the, like, so speaking around this, what's creating things to release? Or is that the thing you're releasing through the expression, which is releasing the muscle?
Yeah, it's
Jake, that's absolutely incredible. I can't believe that.
I don't worry, it's a common response when people, because the thing is, right, it's like once you uncover the precise emotional conflict that's been causing you 14 years of pain, and once you start talking about it, it's like, oh, holy shit, that happened 14 years ago. I don't necessarily need to be still blaming myself for that.
So, full timeline, the 14 years ago, I had a complete loss of identity because stepping away from being an athlete, I really, really struggled to kind of like, who the hell am I? So there was a huge identity collapse from being the athlete where everything revolved around that to then kind of being in the world where you've lost your social circles in the sport, all that sort of stuff. And then obviously with that, so that's amazing. It's given me such clarity to timeline those things. And yeah, I'm gobsmacked.
And that'll be a lasting change for you now, provided that you don't re-trigger it. So what I mean by that is when you went through all that stuff, your subconscious mind would have picked up little cues and things and like feelings and whatever. And anytime you encounter one of those things in the future, so maybe it's where someone wrongs you and you feel like what they did was unfair, you'll be kind of wired for that. And so anytime something like that happens in your future, you might notice the pain flare back up. But the thing is, now that you know what caused it initially, if it does flare up, you can look at your current situation and then go, okay, where did I feel like I'd let someone down? Where did I feel like this was really unfair? And then you will go, oh, of course, it was blah, 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 blah. And just by creating that awareness, you're able to shift your own pain.
Dude, that's absolutely incredible. Like, I'm lost for words. Like, genuinely.
Not good for a podcast, Simon.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. Obviously, I didn't expect that to happen today. But
yeah.
So obviously, for the sake of the audience and what I want to kind of go into with those guys. So because for people at home, is there a set sequence of questions that people can use for self-inquisition? So obviously, those who are listening have stayed with me and just what I've effectively done with you. Is there kind of like a generic set of questions where people could go, do you know what, maybe there is something here that I do need to address, and then they can start acting on that? That's
a really, really cool question. And again, I don't mean to talk about what I'm creating, but that's actually part of the program which I'm creating. It's because the thing is, it's like we all have the ability to heal ourselves. We just need to know where to look, right? Like you, it's like you know that you can heal yourself, but it's just like, all right, what do I need to look at? What is it that I'm not seeing here? So it really depends. And the first thing is like, look at what type of symptom you've got. If it's pain, it's linked with like a a self-devaluation conflict, right? Feeling not good enough or feeling like you've let someone down or whatever. If it's skin, it's something different. That's like a separation conflict. If it's digestive issues, it's another thing again. So learning to understand the types of symptoms and what they're caused by. But then the thing is, it's looking at the timeline. It's going, the timeline is so damn important, right? Because if you started experiencing pain 14 years ago, well, then the event and the stuff that started this whole thing was 14 years ago. So once you've got the specifics on understanding your symptom and going, okay, if I've got knee pain, it's because I feel like I can't compete or I can't keep up or I'm not fast enough. And then it happened 8 years ago. Okay, so 8 years ago, what was going on in my life and where was it that I felt like I couldn't keep up? Where was it that I felt like I couldn't perform? Where was it that I was worried about my physical performance? And then journaling is one of the most beautiful things for that, with precise prompts to go, oh man, that was when I had that athletics carnival and I thought I was a shoo-in for the 100-meter sprint, but then this guy who came out of nowhere who I'd never heard of beat me. That was really unexpected and it really hurt. Like just little things like that. And just by then, once you uncover those little nuggets, and it's like I said to you, once you ask the really specific questions based on your symptom, people will literally pull out this memory or this thing and they'll go, here it is. Here's the thing that's been causing all this pain over the year. But you just need to know where in your brain to unpack it from.
It's incredible, isn't it? Like literally just within that moment, then as soon as you kind of like asked the right question, it was like, oh,
yeah.
There you are.
If you watch back on the video, you'll actually see your face flush, and you'll actually like people actually get a sense of, oh yeah, that thing. This is like quantum healing, right? It's like your body has an amazing capacity to heal instantly, right? Because the thing is, we know that physiological change at the cellular level, so muscle fibers, skin, whatever, occurs from changes in our environment, changes in our perception of the environment. So if you can become consciously aware of some unconscious program that was running and change your perception on that event, well then instantly you'll get changes at the cellular level. Things will start healing and repairing. Things will start to swell and flush and do all these wonderful things, and you'll actually see that occur in people. You'll see people actually relax, or their face will flush with color, or they might feel like a warmth in the area that's been of concern. So all of this healing takes place in an instant.
The crazy correlation I'm making in my head now is just, I'm literally just going through, do you know, like all the people who've got like injuries or illnesses. And the biggest thing that I like that's just jumping out for me is, and I think this is just where your work just blows me away, is the people who I know who have got like recurring injuries, inflammation, skin issues, XYZ, I can see are either the most fearful like people I know, or the ones that are the most emotionally charged. And that's just straight away, I can just really pinpoint that.
Yeah, and once you actually start to understand the types of conflicts that cause skin conditions, or the types of conflicts that cause inflammation, you'll actually get an understanding of what people have been through to sort of experience the physical changes that they've got going on.
That's incredible. Jake, I honestly absolutely love this entire conversation. It's absolutely mind-blowing. I'd love to know, from the line of work that you've done and the things that you've helped, obviously people have just got a bit of a snippet there from what we've just done within 5-10 minutes. I think I just clocked it on the show. Like, what's been the biggest turnaround? Like, because if that's just for this sort of pain, what are the biggest results you're seeing on the back end of the stuff that you're doing? Like, what's the contrast in the results there?
Every day, like physical pains. It's like, it's kind of funny. I almost get complacent at how amazing the changes that people experience are. Like people experiencing 20 years of debilitating back pain, and then it just disappears, or like years of knee pain or years of any kind of pain and just seeing it disappear is pretty remarkable. Skin issues clear in a couple of days. Like the body is truly, truly amazing if it is given the opportunity to heal. Like, man, some of the stuff that we see in here in this world is amazing, and it all occurs when people can either process stuff that they've been through, or become consciously aware of it. It's like the first step is to become aware of the trauma or the experience that you've been through that's caused your physical illness, but then it's about changing your perception on that event as well. So especially things that are more emotionally charged, it's like once people can see things from a different perspective, it's like instead of it being a really horrible situation, it was like, poor me, this happened to me. It's like, oh, this didn't happen to me, it happened for me. Once they start that inner process of healing stuff, man, it's so cool.
Jake, amazing, mate. Absolutely amazing. What I'd love to know, and again, I'm thinking here from how we can cross this into kind of like our line of work as well, is we mentioned very early in this conversation that the majority of things do happen with people in the younger years. So like childhood traumas.
Not necessarily.
And I know, oh, okay.
Yes.
So that's obviously spoke about quite a lot, isn't it, in the industry? It's like, oh, you've got to heal the childhood trauma. So obviously then am I correct in saying there's emergence between what happens in younger years and life event? So are those kind of the two key things to look at?
Yeah, so if we're talking about symptoms specifically, it's like if you've had pain for 7 years and you're 30, well then something happened when you were 23. It doesn't necessarily mean something happened when you were a child. But what I've noticed is that with people, depending on what they've been through as a child, it sort of shapes what kind of symptoms they're likely to experience as an adult. So, for example, people that have had a big separation as a kid will often be really afraid to be by themselves, or they'll get really triggered when they get left in a relationship or when someone leaves or anything like that. People who are really hard on themselves, like they're really fond of beating themselves up, typically had that kind of experience as a child where nothing was ever good enough or whatever. Those types of people are more prone to experiencing lots of physical pain, for example. So in order to heal whatever symptom you're experiencing, you don't necessarily need to go through and heal all the inner child stuff. Absolutely fantastic if you can, but it's more about when the symptoms started and healing the events and situations that occurred around that particular time. But the thing is, if you can start to, like for myself, I was so prone to physical pain. Like I've had every injury under the sun, constant muscle tears and things like that. That was because at a core identity level, I was someone who was really hard on myself. I was someone who couldn't accept myself. And as a result, the physical manifestation of that was pain. Once you start to shift that core identity level and shift from being someone who's constantly perceiving the world as not good enough or perceiving yourself as not good enough and start perceiving yourself differently, well, it makes you less prone to experiencing physical ailments associated with that.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Just completely off the beaten track here. Does this stuff pass on from generation to generation?
Well, in the latest, like if any of your listeners have not listened to Bruce Lipton, like go and listen to him right now. Just YouTube him and start looking at some of his work. So Bruce Lipton's an amazing epigeneticist. He's been doing this work for years and years and years. And what he noted, how he figured this stuff out was that when he got stem cells, which are basically cells which have a potential to be anything, he could turn them into muscle cells or bone cells or lymph cells or whatever based on what environment he put them in.
Yep.
So, but yeah, it's not really my area of expertise in terms of like ancestral stuff, but from what I can understand from like some of like the epigenetic work of like Bruce Lipton, yes, I can definitely see that being a thing, but I'm not too sure about how it plays out necessarily.
No, it was just jumping into my head then because some of my friends who are new mothers who have suffered, say, for example, with skin issues or something like that, I'm now starting to see that the children are now starting to get that. So I was just thinking and I know from their past and the things that we've talked about, certain things have happened or they're quite stressed individuals. So I was just thinking then, I was like, is there a correlation between mother to baby and then...
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that when you sort of said ancestral stuff, I was like, do you sort of mean like my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather? Does anything he's been through correlate with what I've gone through? And again, the answer is probably yes. I just don't know how that sort of things play out. But in terms of mother-child, huge. Like babies can experience conflicts in the womb. And so if the mother is wired, like you said, for a separation conflict, and her partner leaves her while she's pregnant, for example, she might experience that as a really stressful event. That's going to create a whole cascade of cellular changes in her body, which is perceptible by, obviously, the baby in utero. So babies in utero can experience conflicts just as readily as humans, and maybe that's why the baby might be prone to experiencing skin issues like her mother, for example.
Yeah, it's the reason I asked that is just it's something that I keep seeing pop up quite a lot now, and
Yeah.
I think given the nature of where I first started, I've just seen such a huge increase in people speaking about that, or like
Yeah.
skin issues as a whole just becoming a massive issue in people.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Skin issues make sense when you understand the biology. So here's the thing, right? When you tear a muscle fiber, it's designed to make you stronger. So for you, tearing muscles in your shoulders is designed to help you be able to better deal with not letting people down, or be able to, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
The biological purpose is to help you get stronger. So if you experience eczema or things like that, what actually happens is the skin will ulcerate, and if you feel separated from someone, right? So say your mother, she left you. You might experience that as a separation conflict on your left side of your body, right? And the skin would actually ulcerate and become less sensitive. So the less sensitivity has a biological purpose of making the separation less traumatic for you. Does that make sense?
It completely makes sense. It's just, it's remarkable.
If you can't feel the skin, if the skin isn't as sensitive, well, then all of a sudden that painful separation from where you used to embrace someone at the level of the psyche becomes less painful. And then obviously when that heals, when it's like, oh, I feel fantastic, I don't feel like I've lost my mother anymore because she's come back, the skin will repair and you get a red, horrible, nasty rash.
Jay, this is epic. I'd love to know from your experience, for someone who's maybe looking at this and going, holy crap, maybe between Eastern and Western medicines and things along the lines of that, there does lie the help that I actually need or need to kind of look at. What would be your advice to someone? Because obviously with the Western and the Eastern medicine worlds, I know there's quite a lot of conflict within those industries and lots of conflicting information. But what would your advice be for someone who does want to start maybe looking down these paths, who thinks they've tried everything instead of these different methods, but maybe is on like medication and stuff like that from the doctors, so to speak? What would you usually say? What would be the best advice here?
Well, technically, I'd say that this cannot be used as medical advice or a replacement of a diagnosis for any medical condition, as a disclaimer. And don't stop seeing your medical doctor, obviously, if you have some kind of condition. But the thing that I would suggest, and this is how people start, is like this work is so counter to the medical model, and so it's met with such resistance, right? So I wrote a post recently on coronavirus, and I got messages from people all over the world telling me how much of an idiot I was and how much
I saw this.
I was writing.
Hence the first question.
Yeah. And anyway, so the first thing would obviously be, if you don't want to believe it, you don't have to. It's like you can continue to believe your current view on the world, and that's fine. We're all on different paths and we all need to experience different things. But if this is something that's going, oh man, it sounds like there's some truth in what Jake's saying, it's like, don't necessarily drop everything, but just start to experience it for yourself, right? So how pretty much everyone gets into this work is when they experience their body healing by understanding the emotional connection. So say for you right now, that's probably your first taste of like, holy shit, the body can actually heal in a second if I can start healing the particular things that have been causing it. So just start looking at your own life and going, all right, if I've got a chronic illness or a chronic pain or a chronic skin condition or something that just won't shift and you've tried everything else, we'll start looking into this kind of work and start looking into what the precise emotional conflicts are that cause the symptoms. Because the thing is, once people see it shift, experience is so much better than reading a book, right?
The proof's there, literally.
Yeah, right. Your shoulder press is going to go through the roof.
I'll get back to you on that.
It takes people 3 times to actually believe this stuff is legit and really works. Is they might experience something like your shoulder thing, but then the next time they hurt their shoulder or something, they'll be like, oh, I better go to the physio and get this sorted. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. But the more in which you can experience it and start applying it for yourself, the more that you can start to see the truth in things, and the more that's how you can start to move from east to west, as you say.
Incredible, Jake. I'd love to know, because I'm all about human performance. Like, how can we physically, both within our business, our relationships, in life as a whole, just step into them as the best versions of ourselves, in short. Now, with you in this line of work, obviously you guys are kind of like at the base of it. And I really feel that, like, would you say it's is it emotional resilience, or is it emotional awareness? What really is the root of this? Because for me, and I know if I look back at my own stories, only when I started to address the deep-rooted emotional stuff, then everything else started to fly.
Yeah.
So how would you kind of like say for us, if we're looking at health, how we show up energetically, within confidence, for others, XYZ, is it emotional resilience? Is it emotional, what is it? Awareness? What is it that we really do need at the root to slingshot everything else forwards?
Beautiful question. That is such a fantastic question that I think your listeners are going to get such value out of, because once you start to understand this, everything starts to change. So if we just go back a step, and it's like, well, from this new perspective, this new medicine perspective, it's like, what causes disease and problems? And that's the thing that essentially your question is saying. It's like, how do we avoid getting sick? How do we live a life that's full and vital and healthy, right? The thing is, if disease starts from unexpected biological conflicts, which we feel distressing at an emotional level, the thing is, we can't avoid that, right? We're human. Stuff goes down all the time, and it's like things can completely knock us off guard. But the thing is, it's how do you deal with those situations? And that's where emotional resilience comes in. The more you understand yourself, and the more you understand, particularly when you're in the stress phase of a biological program, if you can pick up when you're in the stress phase of a biological program and downgrade it and make it less stressful, well, then when you stop doing the bicep curl, so to speak, your muscle won't get as sore.
Yeah.
So having the emotional awareness to work through your own things is absolutely key, and having an own understanding of how your body intricately works is the key to like living a great life, and being able to actually heal yourself, being able to actually have the tools and the know-how and the practical application to look inside and do the inner work on yourself in a laser focused way.
The thing that immediately just jumps to the front of my brain there is, even at the physical cellular level, because stress effectively is adaptation, isn't it?
Well,
correct?
Yeah. So when we go through something unexpected or stressful, our body goes into fight or flight mode. So you'll get cold hands, cold feet, you can't sleep well, you lose your appetite, your cortisol levels are through the roof, and you're obsessing
Cry in a corner.
Yeah. Yeah, some people. And you obsess about the thing that's been going on, the stressful event that's been going on. There's a biological purpose to that. It's designed, the cortisol and the adrenaline, all that stuff gives you the energy to deal with the situation that's just been going on. So if you're being chased by a tiger, you want that cortisol to be activated. You want all those stress hormones to be activated. So you've got the energy and the metabolic power to get away and escape. But the thing is, when that doesn't become useful, is we as humans have the ability to ruminate and think about stuff that happened 14 years ago and not move through things when they occur. Animals will be in stress for maybe a minute to an hour, say, and then they'll be out of it. Whereas humans we'll spend days, weeks, years in that stress phase, and that's what's really damaging.
This is beautiful, because my next question, where I was going to lead to with that, if obviously it's the rooted in phase, is obviously, say for example, now as we're older, we're mature, we're more aware. A lot of the people who will be listening to this show are kind of in those self-discovery phases or self-inquisition phases.
Yeah, awesome.
But there's nothing that, like, I could literally walk out of this loft studio right now and something drastic could happen. But
absolutely.
in that moment, then of something, what would be the best way to move through it? What would be the best way for me not to kind of like, does that make sense? Not for that to become a rooted issue. So if something was to pop up, high levels of
Yeah.
stress, or for example, I don't know, a business burns to the floor or something like that tomorrow, what are the best things for me to physically do to make sure that that doesn't act as an anchor moving through in life?
Perfect. So the first thing to do is become aware that that thing actually affected you, right? So
Oh,
the thing is, most people will go through stressful events and they'll just completely push them under the rug and not actually deal with it. One of the things that I would actually say is a really healthy thing is to actually go into that instead of feeling that emotion boiling up in your body and pushing it back down. That's not really necessarily solving any problems. I would actually encourage people to experience what they're feeling and feel it all and actually go through that process of whether it be grief or anger or whatever. Emotions aren't bad. It's like we don't need to avoid them. We just need to experience them and then just move through them, right? So, and you can do that in a number of ways. You can, like, if something happened, like someone burnt your house down and you were really pissed off about it, it's like you could suppress that and never deal with it, and that's going to create some kind of physical ailment in your body. Or you can like let that anger out in a safe way, like go into the ocean and punch waves. Like that's one of my favorite things to do if I'm ever angry, just like smash waves or go boxing or just like yell and scream in a pillow. Like actually let that stuff out rather than suppress it. That's the first step. The second step is if you find that you're constantly in the stress phase about it, you're still obsessing about things like weeks, months after it occurred, well, then you haven't processed it. And you'll find your hands are cold, maybe you can't sleep, all those kinds of things. Talking with people about it is the best way to downregulate any kind of stress, right? If you have a close circle of friends and family, like one of the biggest things in my books that determines, like if you ever look at centurions, right? If you ever look at centurions and they go, "What's your secret to long health, Mrs. Jones, who's 102?" And she's like, she smokes a pack a day. She drinks a couple glasses of wine every night. But the thing is, she's Italian, so she's got this beautiful network of family and friends that are always around her.
yeah.
That is such an important aspect because when you have those people, when you have your pack, it makes it so much easier to deal with things and talk things through and have the support there that you need to. But one of the challenging things that we're seeing in today's modern age is we're becoming more and more disconnected. We're moving more and more away from having our pack when the fact is that we are in fact pack animals. And that's a whole nother thing that's causing a whole heap of other health challenges in people.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was obviously, again, I'm just looking into my own story, but like with my gran, obviously we've witnessed her from the passing of my grandfather, but her health issues have just drastic, like there's scaled up completely from that time,
Yeah.
which is not great to see. But I'm just thinking there, like in terms of like loneliness, life event,
Dementia.
does that make sense? Then exactly that, exactly that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that's a really common presentation when people start to like. There's a variety of conflicts involved there, but it's like when people experience that as they get older, it's really common for people to experience dementia as they start to decline. Same thing happened with my grandmother as well. Like once my grandfather passed away, it's like that's the same thing she experienced as well.
It's very hard to teach an old horse new tricks. And obviously when you start to see things in your family, because I know the younger generations are starting to kind of become aware of these things. And then they might have parents that they're like, I really want to help them, but they just won't listen to me because I'm the son and they're the ones that are giving me advice. I know that's something where I used to have a real issue. I'm imagining from your reaction that's something that's popped up. If there was something like that, like what is it, a case of just leading people into the correct information or just trying to change, because it's a paradigm shift, isn't it, that you've got to create in them? So I was going to say, like, with people who are kind of just really, really stuck in the ways, is there a way to kind of like open this up to them?
If I knew the answer to that, that would be fantastic. But the thing is, it's like you can't do that to you can't change people's will. Like, as much as I've tried with my own parents, it's like you can kick the door open for them to walk through, but if they don't walk through, well, that's on them. It's like, but the thing is, I know a lot of your listeners are probably going through, like, starting to become more self-aware and starting to really recognize some cool stuff in the world. And the thing is, you just want to share that with people. You want to share these new truths and these new findings and the new awareness and the all this beautiful stuff that you're experiencing. But the thing is, if people don't want to go through that change, it's like they're not going to want to.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's just a matter of how do you show up? How do you show up and you keep showing up in a way that becomes inspiring for people? And the thing that I've noticed is people who are initially really dismissive, like, oh, Jake, you're an idiot. Like, what are you talking about? Emotions and stress don't cause disease. You're an idiot. But the thing is, you keep showing up in a way that's authentic and true to your message and true to your story. All of a sudden, people start knocking on your door and go, "Oh, what do you think about this?" And it's like cracks start to appear, and it's like that's the only way that you can really get people to change is by leading by example.
That's a beautiful answer. Something else I'd love to kind of like jump into here as well is obviously there's lots of things popping up now, and I'm a big advocate of things like ice baths and things along the lines of that. Is there any certain other treatments or any other external things that you've noticed have a huge impact on people, have a very big, because obviously there's journaling, you've got cold treatments, you've got ecstatic dance. There's so many different techniques and things out there now for people to kind of like either release or express.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you've really found in there or you've got in your own routine which really helps you or it helps the clients or the people all over the world what you work with?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. And it kind of ties back to your question before about the building burning down. It's like we can't stop these things from occurring, but we can be in a place in a state where we're able to be really resilient and really emotionally resilient. And there's some fantastic tools out there to develop your own internal resilience so that although you can't stop things happening, you can be less reactive to things. So one of the biggest things, like I've done heaps of Wim Hof, so like ice baths are fantastic, and I saw that on your Instagram stories yesterday down at Ammo Spa. It was one of my favorite events when I was living in Bali. So that's fantastic. Breath work is absolutely incredible. So Wim Hof's breath work is probably a really safe place for people to start looking into that.
It's a really good first step in, I found.
Yeah, I think so. Like I've done some other full-on holotropic breathwork stuff before, and it's probably not where people need to start. It can be a little bit full-on, a little bit dangerous. But Wim Hof, that's a fantastic place because one of the things is you start to, by having a routine of some kind and cultivating habits which are actually helping you develop more emotional resilience, well, then you're actually going to be a healthier human. So my routine is I do a lot of like I live 50 meters from the ocean on the Gold Coast, so every morning I'll go for a swim and I force myself into a state of like exuberance and happiness and joy and just like fun, and like no one else is in the water. I'm there doing front flips and just like being a child and just getting excited about the day. I do like some breath work and some Wim Hof breathing still, and then I couple that with almost like a technique of self-hypnosis where essentially you're looking at what characteristics and qualities you want to bring to the world. It's kind of like a version of you that's already all the things that you want to create and be a certain way. So by visualizing and imagining yourself showing up exactly how you want to show up in order to create the life that you want to create, whether that's health, wealth, abundance, relationships, whatever, it's almost like a fake it till you make it kind of state in terms of like you need to be the person you need to become, and then through repetition you actually start to create a new subconscious identity and you actually create neural networks.
I'm so glad you've said this because this is something I've recently really started doing, and I actually wrote a semi-post around it, around like the who inspires you question, and how if you make that yourself of how you want to show up for the world, who you want to become, what are the values, how can you amplify them and express them, you can then start closing that gap on yourself day by day by day by day. So I love the fact you've just said that and you've spoke around your approach with it. I for one, it's never really been vocalized on this podcast, but that's something over the past 5-6 years I think has been an absolute game changer for me. Is that?
Yeah.
And it gives you a good dashboard as well to kind of like work out, is this in line with this person, sort of thing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what would Jake 2.0 do? Like, or what would Simon, like, how would he approach his situation? It gives you that compass. Like, I think of the, people of the Christian faith, they have those bracelets that say, like, what would Jesus do? And it's like, how would Simon, the highest version of Simon, how would he show up? How would he react to this situation? And those are really things. And at first it feels uncomfortable because we've become so ingrained in our patterns of self-pity and destructiveness and self-sabotage. We get so ingrained in that neurologically we actually need to step out of that to get out of it, if that makes sense. It's like
100%.
Yeah. So that's something that I've found really useful as well, is going, okay, so for me, for example, I was always in a lot of pain because I was so hard on myself. And so that was neurologically a pattern that I'd created since childhood, which resulted in so many injuries. But me getting out of that was actually creating a personality who was like strong and courageous and powerful and resilient, and someone who really liked himself. And then stepping into that actually created a new version of myself, which is leveled up, I guess you could say.
It's amazing, isn't it? At any point in time, within a split second, you have the decision to change everything about who you are and let go of the old unserving ways and step into the new future fulfilling ways. It really is that.
Yeah. And that's like, this work is actually based all around that. It's like, once you know your symptom, and then once you can trace it back to like a way of being or like an event that went through, you actually have a choice now once you've experienced that to then determine, hey, do I want to keep doing that pattern? Do I want to keep self-sabotaging or being self-destructive or whatever? Or do I want to choose to do a new way of being? And do I want to choose to show up differently?
Awesome. Jake, I'd love to know, obviously I want to be respectful of your time. I know you've got a busy day ahead, but we always ask like a set of like 3 questions at the end. I'm really excited to get yours on this, given the nature of this topic. But if we were to give you a device, so Jake, here you go. Here's a device which you can message every single human being on the world. And given the skill set and everything that you've learned, you've picked up, you've healed all of these people, and you could speak one message to all 7 billion individual people, souls on this planet to help them within their health, their life, their relationship, showing up, the entire works. If you could give one bit of advice from your field of expertise to help them, what would you speak?
That's a big question, but I had a few things pop into my mind as you said that. The first would be that nature makes no mistakes. So we constantly think that, like as humans, that our bodies are failing us or our bodies are attacking us or we need to fight off this thing. It's like, no, nature doesn't make mistakes. And the thing is, once you understand that, and once you understand the premises and start to understand your own mind-body connection, you have the power and ability to heal yourself.
That's an incredible answer. I've never, ever heard that, and I absolutely love that. Nature doesn't make mistakes.
It doesn't.
It really is. No.
It's like, think about that plant that's sitting behind you, right? If you didn't water it or it didn't get enough sunlight, like there's actually a gene in plants. I've forgotten what it's called. It's maybe in a particular type of plant, but if you don't water it, this gene activates and the leaves start to shrivel. And that shriveling would be labeled, oh, that plant looks really sick, it's diseased. But that shriveling is actually helping that plant to conserve water. So nature doesn't make mistakes, and human beings and the body is exactly the same. But we've just interpreted disease and malfunction and sickness and our bodies fighting each other in a certain way, and maybe that's not true.
It's survival. It's got to be survival, isn't it? Like that's our bodies are doing everything in the best just to keep us going and survive.
Yeah, but somehow we forget that. Somehow that we think that if I give examples of like a lion experiencing some kind of stressful event and their body's adapting to cope with that stressful event, people are like, oh yeah, I get that. But for some reason we kind of forget that we're actually animals and that we're governed by the same biological laws of nature as animals.
And plants.
and plants. Absolutely. So yeah, that would be my message. Nature doesn't make mistakes. And once you understand your own mind-body connection, you have the ability to heal yourself.
I love that. It's such a unique answer as well. Absolutely love it. The next one I'd love to ask you as well is obviously given your own story, and you've the thing that I love about people who make it to such levels of yourself is they've always been through their own thing, which gives them the passion and the energy to help others and service them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But given your past, if you could step back into a time and give yourself one piece of advice to help the older version of Jake slingshot forwards, or maybe if you went back into a childhood, into your favorite childhood memory you've got when you were a kid or when you were playing sports or whatnot, and you could give one piece of advice to help him, what would you give?
Can I swear?
Oh, go nuts.
Do not give a fuck what other people think. That has been something, and I still battle with it to this day, is the thing that has held me back for the longest is my fear of what people would think of me. But the thing is, people are going to judge. We're judging machines. People are going to judge you for doing. I listened to your podcast on how to deal with haters and trolls or something. And it was like, if you run into a house and save a family and then you run back in and you save the pets, and then you run back in and save their photo albums, someone's still going to call you an idiot and that you shouldn't have done that, right? But if you let that govern how you show up in the world, well, then you're always going to play small. And so for me, I played small for so long, and I'm breaking out of that mold now. And the thing is, if I could go back and tell myself to do that when I was 13 and 12 and 9, well then, actually I wouldn't change anything, of course, because it's shaped who I am today, but that would be a piece of advice that I would give to myself.
It's the awareness of it. That's the biggest thing that I've found is, especially as well, I see it in a lot of the business circles, is a lot of people, it can mimic itself as well. So it could be like, I'm actually scared of failing, but it's not just failing, is it? It's the failing, the public embarrassment, and then what other people will think of you. It always segments itself back to that.
It's massive.
In some way, shape, or form.
And again, it's that behavior of censoring ourselves or not being authentic and putting ourselves out there as we know that we should. It actually serves a biological purpose. If we look at nature, think of us as pack animals. If we rely on our safety and everything based on our pack, if we go off doing something different or saying something different to what the rest of the pack is saying, well, then it's likely we're going to get ostracized. And that ostracism is akin to death in the animal kingdom. So, but knowing that by putting yourself out there authentically and showing up the way that you want to, knowing that if you do get rejected by people, well, then you're not going to die. You're just actually going to start to find your new pack.
Do you not think that is ultimate emotional resilience? Like, if you can sit there just so comfortable, this is who I am. This is what I love about myself, the world, the people, and nothing else can shake that. Do you know what I mean? That in some form of essence is probably one of the biggest forms of emotional resilience I can think of, really. It's freeing. Absolutely.
If you can experience that level of freedom and that level of emotional resilience, little things aren't going to bother you as much. But yeah, that's a really amazing place. And if I could wish one thing for all your listeners is to experience what that place is like, because man, it's a nice place.
Yeah, I think as well, given the nature of what we spoke about, the tools and techniques in this interview where it can help people find that. Yeah. Take the step into yourself.
Yeah, and there's so many tools and there's so many things, but the other thing it does take is action. Is it takes you to actually step into doing that. And one of the ways that I've found so useful is going, well, if I wasn't scared of what people would think, what would I say? If I wasn't scared of how people react, how would I show up in the world? And then just doing it is such a big thing, because once you actually get to that point of action, you're almost rejected.
Totally. Something you said earlier in this conversation, which kind of segues itself back into this, is when you're the first person in the pack, so to speak, that starts to do these things, people look at you weird. Like, I had this huge social group within the fitness world, and it's a very closed-minded industry I became very aware of. And I was out there, I was going, I'm going to go cold baths, I'm going to go do these breathing exercises, I'm going to go to the yoga studios, I'm going to go and try Kundalinic breathing and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, what's he doing? Like, all these big rugby lads, XYZ, they looked at me stupidly. And for 6 months, they just watched me change and transition, and then straight away from all of that, it was like, oh, so when are you next going to the ice baths? Like, can we come? It's like once people start to see it in you, then they'll gravitate towards what it is that you're doing. But at first, you've got to have the courage to be ridiculed before you. Do you know what I mean? Kind of get the recognition, I guess. So
I know exactly that story is very familiar in my world.
I can imagine. Last but not least, mate, is for you, what does it mean for Jake Currie to lead a nourished life?
What does it mean for me to lead a nourished life?
Yeah.
I guess what it means for me is, like, what nourishes me the most and where I feel the most vibrant and alive is there's something so beautiful. I know it's my life's purpose to inspire people and to show them that they can heal themselves. Like, I know that to the core of my bones. But when you see people make that connection that, holy shit, I can actually heal myself, or there is just something so, so beautiful in that moment. And for me or for people to go back and experience events that have maybe been traumatic and bring conscious awareness to them and then change their perception on that event and then just be so grateful for that moment. There is nothing more beautiful in this world. And for me to feel nourished, like if I could just imagine everyone in the world experiencing having that kind of experience, it's of freedom and peace. It's like, man, that would be a nourished life. And that's what pulls me, I guess, every day.
That's incredible. Jake, last but not least, mate, where can everyone find you? What can people get involved in? I can imagine through this conversation, given the nature of our audience, that you're probably going to get a lot of questions or a lot of people going in search of what we've just spoke about. But where can people find you? Is there anything what people can get involved in?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing is I have a few different offerings and things, but my website, drjakecurrie.com is probably the best place for people to get in touch. In terms of, like, if people need help, like one of my two offerings are I help people to like shift things like shoulder pain or disease and stuff by coaching them and doing consults with them. So that's one thing that people can do if they need help with shifting some old illnesses or pains or patterns that just won't shift and they've tried everything for. Well, then I'm open to doing those kind of consultations. And the second thing is, as I said, keep an eye peeled for this Mind Body Mastery program, which is coming up, which is designed to give people the roadmap so that they can find the precise emotional conflicts that have been causing their disease and learn how to heal themselves and learn how to develop that emotional resilience. So all the information of that's on my website.
Jake, absolutely incredible, mate. I am so glad we've got you on. Genuinely, I think the best thing as well is like the proof's there. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just it's amazing just from anyway.
Yeah.
I really can't even still put that into words yet. So
oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
well, I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yeah. No, look, I want to acknowledge you. I think, first off, like the bravery you've got to go against, because this really, I found from actually, we've helped quite a lot of businesses within that world. It's quite a hard thing to go against, especially when it's going against different forms of medicine. I know it's quite a hard industry to really show up and go against, so to speak. So I absolutely love the fact you've followed through and you've stuck into what you do. I know from the functional medicine backgrounds and things like that in the past, how this work can really go out there and help people. And obviously you've literally just done that with me. So Jay, look, I really appreciate everything that you're doing. And the best thing is about this, I know with where I've got you on this show, you're only at the start of what you're about to do. So I really can see just in yourself or whatever you do, there's going to be a very big popping moment for you. So I really can't wait to watch that.
Oh, thank you, Simon.
Yeah,
thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
This won't be the first, I can assure you that. But Jake, look, where can people find you on the social channels?
I'm kind of average on socials, but I'm on Instagram as Jake_Currie. You can hit me up on Facebook. I think I've got a page, Jake Currie what is it? Jake Currie GNM practitioner. That's another page that you can follow some along with the work that I do.
Amazing. Jake, look, I really appreciate the fact you've took the time. Amazing conversation. It's blown me away. And it's very rare that someone still leaves me in a state where I can't verbalize something. So well done.
Mate, no, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it because, mate, it means so much to me to be able to share this message with the world because so many people need to hear it. So many people need to know that they don't need to live in fear of their bodies malfunctioning or buggering up. They need to know that nature doesn't make mistakes and they can heal. And so thank you for allowing me to share that message with your listeners.
Amazing. Jake, I'm
Means a lot.
excited to watch you grow, mate. So
No, thank
keep
you.
going.
Thank you.